I was in BTS in my fourth year, my senior year, when they bombed Pearl Harbor.
I've talked to World War II veteran Robert Moore several times over the last few years. His story is fascinating. I've taken all those interviews and put together an extended version of his story, from growing up on a farm in East Tennessee during the Great Depression, to serving in Italy during World War II, meeting his wife in Italy after the war was over, and much more. Today on the show, part one of my conversations with World War II veteran Robert Moore. In this episode, he tells us about his childhood, to hearing about the attack at Pearl Harbor when he was in high school, and later being drafted to go fight in World War II.
My father took me to the draft board, I'll call it, not remembering exactly what they call it at that time, and told him how many veggies he's going to roll for the army and all that and stuff, and he needs me. And didn't do any, wasted his time, in other words.
My name is Josh Roe, and this is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. How are you today, Mr. Moore?
I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
What do you feel like talking about today?
Whatever you ask,
Whatever
I'm going
I
to try to answer.
Yeah.
Let's start with your childhood and where you grew up and some of those stories. Tell me about that.
I was conceived February the 2nd, 1924. Born 9 months later. Fourth child in a family of 9 children. And the oldest son.
Where'd you live? Where'd you grow up?
Jefferson County, Tennessee, Dandridge. We lived maybe 4 miles from Dandridge. If it had been farther, I'd have gotten more trouble than I did, I guess. No, I went to Maury High School 2 years. Rode a school bus or a mule. Most of the time a school bus.
When you say a mule, you mean actually a mule?
Sir?
When you say a mule, you mean a mule, like an animal.
A mule, yes.
You rode the mule to school.
The smartest animal ever been born is a mule.
And you rode...
Maybe that includes some people. I don't know.
You might be right. And you rode the mule to school.
Well, we had one power source mule. We had 2 of those. We were barefoot from the frost left to it froze again. Had one piece of clothing, overalls. No shorts and no t-shirts. And no socks in it when you're barefoot, of course. Your feet get as tough as the leather on today's shoes.
The first time I talked to Robert Moore was back in 2017. This is what he told me then about his parents.
My mother and father were both teachers. We lived on a farm, and they paid for this farm during the Depression by whatever legal means they could.
I talked to Mr. Moore in 2017, and then again in 2024 during his 100th birthday party. I talked to him 2 times in 2025, in April and May of that year, and I went back for another visit with Mr. Moore a few weeks ago. The first part of this episode was from May of 2025. Here's more of that conversation about growing up in East Tennessee.
My dad was very strict. He didn't beat around the bush. If he tell you to do something, you do it. Papa get up and build a fire, and on the end of this room were all the benches over there for every kid had a place to eat. And Mother at this end and Pop's at this end, and before we eat at night, Pop would always ask a blessing. And you can say what you want, but I believe that's the reason I'm still here. Pop would say, and save us all without the loss of one. I'm the one that's still left. So Pop makes a fire, get you warming out. It's in the winter time. You get rousted out, get dressed or whatever, and you go feed the mules. The mules took 8 ears of corn. It wasn't shelled, it was shucked, but just the corn hard. And you put it in there. They had a little trough about so wide. and they'd eat this corn. And then we'd climb up in the loft of the barn and get a bunch of hay with a fork, maybe a bushel or two, and throw it down through this hole. And I've fallen through them holes, by the way. You miscue where they are and you fall in there. And that's what you do when you first get up. And if you've got pigs or something, it has to have fluid. We'll call it slop. It was dishwater. You had to get that out there to them. And if you came back and breakfast, if it was ready, you ate breakfast. If it wasn't, you wash your face and go to school. Breakfast consisted of bacon. Wasn't bacon like you buy today. It was a 1/4 inch thick and a strip like so long, 8 or 10 inches, and 1.5 to 2 inches wide. It was cut from the center part of the pig, and they did their own butchering there. And when they needed some bacon, Mother's going to make breakfast. Her typical breakfast was gravy and biscuits.
What do you think that growing up that way in the Depression, not having a lot, what do you think that did for you? Did that make you tougher?
We didn't know we were poor. We were better off than most people. We had, when I was born, I believe my father had owned 63 acres. Part of it inherited, but but by the time they built Douglas Dam, he owned 103 acres, I believe. You wouldn't believe what it took to operate a farm. You're talking this guy, tell him what you want done and what such. We grew our own corn in the field to run the farm. These rows of this corn field were 3 feet apart for reasons. We had a cultivator that straddled this. As the corn grew, you're sitting astraddle of this and the mule walking over here and the mule walking over there. You had pedals, you could push it and move 6 or 8 inches this way to make it miss a corn stalk and get a weed. I don't know if that's ringing a bell or not, but it's you had to protect what you could grow and use it. We didn't throw anything away. There's so many funny little things mixed around this worms in his head. I don't really feel free to.
You can talk about whatever you want to. Tell me whatever story you have.
No. What I want to went out the window before you got here this morning.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me anyway.
My father was partial to me because he had 3 daughters older than me. I'm going to give you my conception of it. Even at that time, I knew that he'd take me where he wouldn't dare. My next brother was almost 3 years later. And my dad would do me favors and so on. But when I'm 13, he gave me an old Model A Ford. That Model A didn't have no brakes. Well, it wasn't built with brakes. There was no hydraulic brakes in them days. And he drives in and he's already got him another car somewhere, but I didn't know that. And maybe Mom knew it, I don't know. And he says to me, put the brakes on it and you can have it. My mom yelled out, the chicken from the kitchen, you might as well send him to hell now. And that was closer than you'd think. But I'm not going to get into that Model A, except I had a wheel come off with it. Sometimes I get to a place where I should be telling something else for some other reason, but I was already in Maury High School, and they're building a Douglas Dam. And nobody had any money, but I had a car. And I had friends, some of them had a nickel, some of them had a dime. They get together, we'd get enough gas to run around Sunday afternoon. And Pop didn't mind. I didn't get in too much trouble with that. But went to Douglas down when the wheel come off and went down through the bushes and finally found the wheel, brought me back up there. Well, I didn't know what was wrong with this car, acting funny, and that wheel goes by me on it. Well, everybody helped to get that car going. We got it back on, and this car, it looked as good as the average car. But if a guy had a new car, he was the guy that owned the drugstore. His son, Miller, had a new Chevrolet. We're coming back through Danridge, and these kids had, I believe, I had 5 kids, I believe. A guy and a girl sitting in other bucket seats. This thing only had bucket seats in front, even though it was a 4-door. In the back, there was 2 couples. I'm talking about freshman high school kids. And they'd come alongside, and this guy had this new car, and he had kids that we knew in our class in school. And they'd say, "Get that junk off the road." And these kids, they didn't like it. It didn't bother me much. I know it looked like a junk, but I couldn't run very fast. So if you've been to Danridge, you know where you come across a bridge. That bridge was there. And you go up, it'll be south. There's a little rise about like this. And I'm going up this, and these kids are barking at each other back and forth. And I didn't particularly interested in what they're doing or what they're saying. I mean, I'm not having a problem keeping the car on the road, but this guy comes up, pulled up on the right side of me, and they're making. We weren't crossing, but it was very close. I wasn't saying a word. The best I can remember. Well, I had the chance. I couldn't get around him, but there was a car parked over there. So I pulled up to where he had to almost stop, and then I went around him. As I'm going around him, one of the girls sitting in the back seat yanked her undies off and stuck her butt out the window. And it took my mom 2 weeks to find that out. And that's the end of my Model A till I left that part of the country.
She took your car away.
Oh, yeah, my mother would have run Pop off if he'd overruled her on that. I mean, she was maybe 20 minutes we could walk from where we lived to school. 2-room schoolhouse with 2 teachers, a big room and a little room.
Then after that, you went to Bible school in Sevierville, right?
Well, that's where I got my high school diploma. I went to BTS the 3rd and 4th year.
Tell me this. I heard the story of you got moved to BTS.
When you were at Maury High School, what happened? How come you had to go?
Well, 2 or 3, I don't know. We've been doing this for, 6 weeks or a month. I don't know. But we come from, they had a 55, I believe, Ford bus.
Okay.
It's what you'd find one of them little 40 passengers now. As we come to that big hill, it was steep and it'd get down to low gear. And 4 or 5 of us, sometimes 2 or 3 of us, we'd jump out and hold that bumper and that couldn't turn loose. He'd roll back down the hill. He'd get so mad and find him. My mother found out about it. I don't believe I went. I don't know if I went back to Moore High School or not. Before I was going to Moore High School the 2nd year. And sometime during that summer, Mom decided I should be a preacher. The Lord didn't call me to preach. I'd be preaching instead of talking to you. That's how concerned I am with what I wanted to do. I did what I wanted to do. I lived in the dormitory because my mom was going to have me, I'm going to say, associated with all our ministers till I got saved. Because she knew and I knew that the Lord had to do a lot of work on me or I'm gone. But I went down there, I had to take Latin, I'd take algebra, I'd take trig, and I'd take Bible, voice, guitar. I would never, in my whole life, would have thought that I'd ever need algebra or trigonometry in my life. I have never used algebra. I have had to use trig where it was really important once.
One time.
Uh,
What about Latin?
Never. A little. When you get to high school, you learned a few words that came in handy. When I went to Italy, I could look at it and tell what it meant, but to use, no.
Fire at Murray School, did you have anything to do with that? You're not going to be prosecuted.
Fire.
Yeah.
Was there a fire at the school?
Well, it wasn't. It was really. We were doing something, and we used phosphorus. It comes in a little, like a pint fruit jar. It looks like chalk, and if you take it out of that water, it will burn. It'll start smoking. Well, the last period that when the bell rang, we left some of that laying on the desk and jumped out and went down and grabbed our books and went running the bus. Next thing I know, there's smoke boiling out of that window. And we're sitting there and the bus is out in front. We didn't do nothing. We didn't start it. It starts itself. It's stuff you make matches out of. And if you keep it out of this liquid, it will catch fire itself. I don't know how to learn much except maybe. So I didn't do it, you know.
Was that in a class, or were you just doing that?
We were at our last class was lab. And this is Moore High School. I don't know. I didn't take much of anything worth anything to Moore High. But the last, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes the quiz class was lab, and we're fooled with something. Maybe I don't know what we were doing with it. Showing us that phosphorus get yourself on fire without any light. And we left it laying there, and it put that place full of smoke, and we didn't get to leave till. But I remember it very well, but I don't remember getting in any trouble over that because I was in a classroom, and everybody in that classroom was guilty. You know, we just didn't put stuff away. That was maybe a week before my high school term was over. I didn't go to school till next year. I went to Lee. It's BTS, but it's Lee now. I was in BTS in my fourth year, my senior year, when they bombed Pearl Harbor.
What do you remember about Pearl Harbor?
Well, I didn't know where Pearl Harbor was. It's easy to admit now, but it's kind of stupid growing up not knowing where Pearl Harbor was, and most of our Navy's over there having a ball. And we'd see pictures on the newspaper. We didn't have any TV, or we didn't have a radio at that time. The boys, the male population of BTS was 90% men, and they left there that day. They were in the reserve, I guess, and they had left. I remember a guy, John, someone that lived in Washington State, left there in a Model T Ford and his trunk of everything he owned the day they bombed Pearl Harbor. When I was 17, the day I was 17, I registered for the draft. And before I was 20, I was in the Army. I don't know how much of that you want to get into.
Did you get drafted?
Yeah, I was drafted. I would have went in maybe my father took me to the draft board, I'll call it, not remembering exactly what they call it at that time, and told him how many veggies he's going to roll for the Army and all that and stuff, and he needs me. And didn't do any, wasted his time, in other words. They tried to get all us stupid young kids to keep from having to draft married guys with kids, so they could grab us wherever they could get us.
Again, this is part 1 of 2 in my conversation with World War II veteran Robert Moore. And a big thank you to Mr. Moore and his family for taking the time for this conversation on to Morrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. I hope you join me again real soon.